Innocent convicts set free. I mean, I really shouldn't even say innocent convicts because they shouldn't even have been convicts in the first place. Can you imagine? I mean, what would it even feel like? You know, let's say you've been in prison for 5 or 10 years, a crime you didn't commit, you knew you didn't commit it, nobody believed you, but you finally find the proof that gets you acquitted. Like happiness, but just that anger too.
This is Clemente Agiri, who was sentenced to death for a double murder he did not commit in Altamont Springs, Florida.
I do know that nobody believed me back then. No one. Besides my mother, nobody believed me.
Nearly 14 years ago, Agiri lived just a few doors down when a mother and daughter were killed. Soon, Agiri became the prime suspect. Reportedly, he went to the woman's house that night asking for beer, and here he found the dead bodies. He tried to revive the woman, but then panicked and ran home. He stated he didn't call the police because he was an illegal immigrant from Honduras and feared deportation. Agiri was arrested and later convicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder and given the death sentence.
I didn't do it. I don't kill nobody.
After Agiri was escorted out of the courtroom, it wouldn't be until 9 years later evidence showed that the DNA might have been misrepresented. So Agiri's lawyers filed for more testing. It turns out that all of Agiri's DNA samples matched his testimony, meaning that his DNA on the scene matched with him trying to save the victims.
Why did it take 9 years for them to figure that out? 9 years? Like, this is insane, isn't it?
After 14 years behind bars, 11 of which on death row, all charges against Agiri are dropped, and he thanks the court.
And I thank you for it from the bottom of my heart.
As he hugs his team and family, he is now walking out a free man. Reportedly, Agiri is owed $720,000 from the state for the wrongful conviction.
Is that it? Is that all? So what's that divided by 14? 50 grand a year? No way. I'm sorry, that is nowhere near enough. To be honest, there's no financial amount that justifies it anyway, but come on. This is not enough.
However, state lawyers are fighting against it, and so far, he hasn't received anything. His immigration status is also ongoing. This is Deborah Melki. She was sentenced to death and spent 22 years on death row for a crime she did not commit in Phoenix, Arizona.
My innocence did not matter in their pursuit of a conviction.
Melki's 4-year-old son was found dead in a desert, being shot 3 times. Melki was questioned by Detective Armando Saldate Jr., which was not recorded or reported at all. He claimed that Melki admitted to arranging the murder.
She then decided that it'd be best for Christopher Melki to die.
She was then charged with first-degree murder despite no actual record of her admitting to the crime. The state determined she had masterminded the shooting and she was sentenced to death. Over 20 years later, questions started to get asked regarding Melki's confession to Detective Saldate, which Melki still denies ever giving.
I had absolutely nothing to do with the brutal murder of my son, Christopher, and I did not give a confession to Mr. Saldate.
Reportedly, the court found that Detective Saldate had a long list of lying under oath and violating individual rights while interrogating.
Why? Is he just a psychopath? Like, why would you lie under oath? Like, what does he have to gain? What does he benefit from doing? I mean, he gets to close cases? Is that it? So he puts people behind bars for crimes they didn't commit just because he gets to close the case?
Melki's alleged confession was the only direct evidence linking her to the crime. And finally, 24 years after the arrest and facing the death sentence, her conviction gets overturned. Listen as she shares her thoughts for the wrongful conviction.
Losing a child to murder is a devastating tragedy. Being falsely accused of a crime you didn't commit is also a devastating tragedy. Try to imagine that. What happened to me could happen to any one of you.
Melki now walks out a free woman.
20 years they took from her. Jesus.
There are no reports of Melki receiving any compensation.
What?
I'm
sorry, there should be a mandatory. I think, like, if you're wrongfully committed, there should be like a mandatory monetary amount per year, something like, I don't know, 200,000 a year, whatever. There has to be. Come on. You've robbed these people of all that time.
This is Clifford Williams. He was sentenced to death and spent 43 years behind bars for crimes he did not commit in Jacksonville, Florida.
I just wanted to get out and be with my 6 kids. They was gone, and it wasn't nobody but them.
Williams was 34, and his 18-year-old nephew, Nathan Myers, were suspects in a murder and attempted murder. The survivor of the shooting claimed that she had been shot by the uncle and nephew, identifying them both by name. Despite having solid alibis, Williams and Myers were both arrested and charged within hours. No physical or DNA evidence pinned the two men to...
So they had alibis and they were still charged? Nah, this is crazy. This makes no sense to me whatsoever.
This crime. Yet both men were found guilty.
How?
Williams was sentenced to death and Myers was given a life sentence. It wasn't until 43 years later, while they were in prison, there was a new investigation on the scene, proving that the ballistic reports from the crime lab didn't match the original testimony, and it was the only evidence pinning the men to this crime. And now, this is the moment that Williams and Myers have been waiting for 43 years.
Mr. Williams and Mr. Myers, the indictments have been dismissed against you. You are free to go, and we are adjourned.
After they hear that they are free, they hug each other and their teen. Williams and Myers both received $2 million in state compensation.
Man, that makes me so angry. It really does. 43 years. Can you imagine spending 43 years in prison for something you didn't commit? 43 years? Like, he was in there longer than he was out, right? Ugh.
This is Eric Kelly, who was sentenced to life in prison for a robbery and murder he did not commit in Passaic County, New Jersey. Kelly was 28 when he was taken into custody after a man was killed working at a video store. Kelly suffered a tragic brain injury, making him suffer a cognitive disability, and he had trouble processing information from detectives and allegedly admitted to the crime, even though he had not done it. Despite no physical evidence, he was convicted and put in prison. It wouldn't be until 24 years later the case was reopened, and major advancements in DNA testing proved that Kelly was not at the crime scene.
Therefore, in light of the foregoing reasons, the motion for a new trial is hereby granted.
A new trial was granted, and Kelly is now outside of prison for the first time in almost a quarter century, still with the fear he might go back.
Mainly, I want to eat. I'm a little hungry. My legal team, I want to thank them. I want to thank my family. Just want to get back to actually living for once.
Surprisingly, the prosecution later dismissed all pending charges against him. Kelly reportedly received $1 million in state compensation. This is Robert Springsteen.
I think there needs to be some kind of mass reform of how, criminal trials are tried in court. Like, the amount of evidence, I mean, it has to be beyond reasonable doubt. Like, beyond. Like, you can't just be throwing people in prison without, hardcore, completely irrefutable evidence. Like, this is nonsense to me. What do you guys think? Imagine if it was your son or daughter that got put in prison, given life, based on... They had an alibi. They had an alibi saying that they weren't at the scene. And they still got put in prison,
who spent 9 years in prison and was sentenced to death for crimes he allegedly did not commit in Austin, Texas. Springsteen was 17 at the time, and 3 friends were believed to be prime suspects in the killings of 4 teenage girls at a yogurt shop. One of the boys was caught carrying a .22 caliber gun at the mall, as it was the same weapon used in the killings. The boys were set free after no link was found, but 7 years later, one of the friends was interrogated and begun to give up information saying that the .22 caliber gun used to belong to Springsteen.
But this is one of the most significant things that ever happened in your life. That's what I keep trying to explain to you. If I was there and I partook in this, I would remember these things. And you do remember these things. No, I don't.
He was arrested, then later convicted and sentenced to death. Springsteen's conviction was later overturned based on an unfair trial. While waiting for a retrial, lawyers requested further DNA evidence to be analyzed from the original crime scene. Even though it had been 17 years, the analysts concluded that no DNA was found of Springsteen and his 3 friends. Now, Springsteen is back in court.
Second defendant, Robert Springsteen's case is being called this afternoon. Additionally, 4 pending capital murder indictments.
And all charges are now dismissed.
The court has signed these dismissals in each of the causes against these 2 defendants, Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen.
Springsteen sits silently as he hears that he is now a free man. Springsteen spent 9 years in prison, but his overturned conviction was not granted based on actual innocence, which makes him not eligible for a payout.
No, oh my
This
God.
is Curtis Flowers, who was wrongfully imprisoned for 23 years and set to the death penalty for a quadruple murder he reported.
He should take that all the way to the Supreme Court. That is ridiculous. I don't care about all that technicality. No way.
Reportedly never committed in Winona, Mississippi. Flowers was 26 years old when he was fired from working at a furniture store. 2 weeks later, the owner of the same store and 3 employees were all found dead inside. In no time, Flowers became a suspect and was later arrested and charged with the murder of all 4 victims. Over 6 different trials, all for the same crime, the final verdict resulted in guilty, and Flowers was sentenced to death. Investigators started looking into the jury selection, and reportedly the prosecution had racially discriminated during the selection of jurors across all 6 trials. This reached the U.S.
I mean, that should immediately be acquitted then. He should be immediately acquitted. That's that's not a fair trial.
Supreme Court, and it was voted to throw out the case based on the prosecutor had purposefully dismissed African American jurors
that's not a free and fair trial. Sorry.
From the trial. The judge granted Flowers bail, and he is now getting put on house arrest.
The only times that Mr. Flowers is allowed to be away from the location where he will be residing is if he's receiving medical treatment, attending meetings with his attorney.
And now, in 23 years, this is the first time Flowers is outside of prison.
Oh, I don't know. I'm so excited right now. I can't thank you all very much. Thank you all.
A year later, the state denied to put Flowers back on trial and officially dropped all charges. The state of Mississippi announced that it will pay Flowers $500,000.
It's almost like an insult. I'm sorry. That's an insult. That is like, it's about $20,000 a year. So you had this man in a cell for 23 years. 23 years, and you basically are saying, yeah, you can have 20 grand for each year that you were in there that you were innocent.
$1,000 for his
20. What do you guys think? Do you think that's enough? Would you trade 23 years of your life for $500,000? I'm willing to bet most of you wouldn't.
3 years of wrongful imprisonment.
I wouldn't.
This is Kimberly Long, who was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison for a murder she never committed in Riverside, California. Long arrived home and discovered her boyfriend dead. She immediately called 911. Despite being the person who found the dead body, Long ended up becoming the lead suspect. She was soon convicted of second-degree murder and sent to prison. But 7 years later, forensic evidence showed that her boyfriend died long before she had arrived at the scene, and there was DNA of an unknown male at the crime scene.
So that should be enough to have her off the list of suspects.
The conviction now gets overturned.
The judgment of conviction is vacated and a new trial will be ordered.
Long is now outside of prison. The prosecution soon dropped all existing charges.
I feel happy, elated, relieved, just a lot of emotions right now.
Long reportedly received $386,000 from the California Victim Compensation Fund.
Mate, I'm sorry. These amounts of money are just insulting. I know that, some of them didn't even get anything, which to me is just a complete joke, but it should be much higher than that. It should be much higher than that. What do you guys think here? This video really is eliciting a strong reaction out of me because, I'm imagining myself in that situation or someone that I love and care about. The case where the 2 men had an alibi, a strong alibi, So they weren't there. They weren't at the scene. They weren't there, and they still put them in prison. That is just, my brain isn't working. I can't understand how that happened. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.